there's a conversation we never have about isolation. We talk about what it takes from you, the connections, the shared experiences, the feeling of belonging. We talk about the loneliness, the struggle, the pain of being on the outside. But we rarely talk about what it gives you. And make no mistake, isolation gives you something. It shapes you in ways that constant companionship never could. While you've been alone, while you've been struggling, while you've been feeling like you're missing out on something fundamental, you've been developing skills that most people will never possess. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't everything happens for a reason or just look on the bright side. This is recognition of something real. You've been training in a particular kind of life experience, and that training has consequences. Some of those consequences are painful, but some of them are profound gifts that deserve to be acknowledged. Let's start with the most fundamental skill you've developed. You know yourself. Not the version of yourself that performs for others. Not the self that adapts to social expectations. Not the identity that emerges from group dynamics. You know the actual you. When you spend significant time alone, you can't hide from yourself. There's no one else to focus on, no external drama to distract you, no social performance to maintain. You're forced into a confrontation with who you actually are, what you actually think, what you actually want. This isn't comfortable. In fact, it's often excruciating. But it produces a level of self-awareness that most people never achieve. You know what you genuinely enjoy versus what you've been told you should enjoy. You know your authentic values separate from inherited beliefs. You understand your patterns, your triggers, your defense mechanisms. You've mapped your internal landscape with a precision that constant social interaction would never allow. Most people construct their identity through reflection in others' eyes. They know themselves as the funny friend, the responsible sibling, the ambitious co-worker. These identities are real, but incomplete. They're collaborative creations, shaped by social context. You've had to build your identity from raw materials, from direct internal observation. It's harder work, but it produces something more solid. You know what actually matters to you because you've had time to sit with your priorities without external pressure. You've made decisions based on your own judgment, not consensus. You've discovered what truly interests you versus what groups you wanted to belong to were interested in. Your preferences are genuinely yours. This self-knowledge is a marketable skill, though it's rarely recognized as such. In a world full of people who don't know why they do what they do, who follow paths because everyone else is on them, who chase goals they don't actually want, your clarity is rare and valuable. You waste less time on things that don't serve you. You're harder to manipulate. You make better long-term decisions because you understand your actual needs and values. You've become an anthropologist of human behavior. While others have been participating in social life, you've been studying it. And observation from the outside provides insights that participation never can. You notice things others miss entirely. You see the micro-expressions that betray true feelings beneath polite words. You pick up on power dynamics in group settings. You recognize performative friendship versus authentic connection. You can spot insecurity masked as confidence, loneliness hidden behind social activity, toxicity disguised as closeness. This isn't paranoia or cynicism. It's pattern recognition developed through thousands of hours of observation. You've watched enough interactions to understand the underlying mechanics of social exchange. You see the unspoken rules, the subtle hierarchies. the ways people negotiate status and belonging without ever explicitly discussing it. You understand social dynamics at a systems level. You can predict how groups will evolve, who will drift away, which friendships will last, where conflict will emerge. Not because you're psychic, but because you've studied human behavior with the focus of someone whose survival depended on understanding it. This observational capacity makes you an exceptional judge of character. You're harder to deceive because you're reading behavior at multiple levels simultaneously. You notice inconsistencies between words and actions that others rationalize away. You see red flags early because you're not blinded by the excitement of connection. In professional settings, this skill is invaluable. You read rooms accurately. You understand office politics without participating in them. You can assess team dynamics, identify problem patterns, and predict outcomes. You see the things that people embedded in social structures become blind to. Your observations have also taught you something crucial. Most social interaction is theater. Not fake necessarily, but performed. People are playing roles, following scripts, meeting expectations, understanding. This doesn't make you cynical. It makes you realistic about what connection actually is and what it requires. You've developed the ability to regulate your own emotional state without external support. This is a rare and powerful skill in a world where most people outsource their emotional processing to others. When you're happy, you don't need someone else to validate that happiness. When you're sad, you've learned to sit with sadness without someone rushing to fix it. When you're anxious, you've developed internal resources for managing that anxiety. You've become your own emotional support system because you've had to be. This doesn't mean you don't need others or that connection wouldn't enhance your emotional life. It means you're not dependent on external validation for basic emotional regulation. You can function, process, and cope on your own. Most people can't. You've learned to sit with uncomfortable emotions without immediately seeking distraction or comfort. You don't need to text someone every time you're feeling something difficult. You don't need constant reassurance or validation. You've developed what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to experience difficult emotions without them overwhelming you or requiring immediate relief. You've also learned to celebrate yourself, not in a narcissistic way, but in a necessary way. When something good happens, you've learned to acknowledge it internally. Without needing external celebration, you've become the voice that says, "You did well," when no one else is there to say it. You've learned to be proud of yourself, independent of praise. This emotional independence is a foundation that makes you less vulnerable to manipulation, less likely to stay in bad relationships out of fear of being alone, less prone to making decisions based on others' emotional reactions. You know you can handle life emotionally on your own if you need to, which means you're choosing connection rather than needing it desperately. Every decision you make is genuinely yours. This sounds simple, but it's profound. Most people's choices are heavily influenced by social pressure, peer expectations, and the desire to fit in or impress others. Your choices have been made in a vacuum of social influence, which means they reflect your actual priorities. You've chosen your career path based on what actually interests you, not what would impress people. You've developed hobbies because you genuinely enjoy them, not because they're social activities. You've made lifestyle choices based on your authentic preferences, not on keeping up with others. This isn't always advantageous. Sometimes social influence provides useful information and guards against poor choices. But it means your life is actually yours in a way that's increasingly rare. You're not living someone else's vision of what your life should be. You've also developed the ability to make decisions without consensus. Most people need to talk through every choice with friends, getting input and validation before proceeding. You've learned to analyze options, trust your judgment, and commit to decisions independently. This makes you decisive and self-directed. When you do eventually connect with others, this skill means you bring your whole, authentic self to the relationship, rather than molding yourself to fit what you think they want. You don't lose yourself in relationships because you have a strong sense of who you are, independent of them. Solitude is the native environment of creativity. While you've been alone, your internal world has expanded in ways that constant social stimulation prevents. You've developed rich imaginative capabilities, deep creative thinking, and the ability to generate ideas without external input. You've had time to think deeply about things that interest you. Not quick social media takes or conversation-level understanding, but actual deep thinking. You've followed threads of curiosity wherever they led, without needing to explain or justify your interests to others. Your creativity isn't performed for an audience. You don't create to impress people or gain validation. You create because you're genuinely interested in creating. This produces work that's more authentic, more personal, more unique than social creation often allows. You've developed the ability to be bored, which sounds negative, but is actually crucial for creativity. In a world where everyone fills every empty moment with social media or communication, you've had to sit with emptiness. And in that emptiness, creative thinking emerges. Ideas come when your mind isn't constantly occupied with social processing. You think differently than people embedded in social structures. You're not constrained by groupthink or social consensus. Your ideas haven't been smoothed down by committee. You maintain perspectives that might be unusual or unconventional because you haven't had them shaped by constant social feedback. You notice people who are alone. You see the person sitting by themselves in the cafeteria. You spot the coworker who never gets invited to lunch. You recognize loneliness in others that socially connected people walk right past. This awareness comes from lived experience. You know what it feels like to be invisible, so you've developed the ability to see others who feel invisible. You notice the quiet person in the group whose contributions get overlooked. You pick up on the subtle signs that someone is struggling socially, even if they're pretending to be fine. This makes you exceptionally empathetic in specific ways. Not empathy as sentiment, but empathy as actual understanding. You know what it costs someone to show up to a social event alone. You understand why someone might decline invitations even though they want to go. You recognize the courage it takes for someone to reach out when they're isolated. You also have compassion for behaviors that others judge harshly. You understand why someone might seem standoffish or awkward. You recognize social anxiety beneath what looks like aloofness. You give people the benefit of the doubt in ways that those who've never struggled socially often don't. This gift of seeing the unseen makes you someone who could change someone else's experience of isolation. You have the awareness and empathy to reach out to people. Others overlook. You could be the person who makes someone feel less alone, precisely because you know what alone actually feels like. You've handled life's challenges without a support system to fall back on. Every problem you've solved alone. Every decision you've made independently. Every difficult emotion you've processed without someone to help carry the weight. This has built mental resilience that most people don't develop. You know you can handle difficulty because you've done it repeatedly. You don't fall apart when things go wrong because you've learned to be your own support system. You've proven to yourself that you can survive hard things alone. You've developed problem-solving skills born from necessity. When something breaks, you figure out how to fix it. When you face a challenge, you research solutions and implement them. When you need something, you find a way to get it yourself. This self-reliance is a form of strength that dependency relationships often prevent from developing. You've also developed the ability to sit with uncertainty without constant reassurance. Most people need others to tell them everything will be okay when facing difficult situations. You've learned to tolerate not knowing, to move forward without guarantees, to trust yourself to handle whatever comes. This resilience means you're less likely to be devastated by setbacks. You've already survived what felt like the worst thing, being fundamentally alone. Other challenges feel manageable by comparison. You have evidence that you can endure difficulty, which provides confidence in facing future challenges. Your thinking hasn't been shaped and constrained by constant social feedback. You've had the freedom to explore ideas without immediately checking them against social consensus. This produces thought that's more original, more bold, sometimes more accurate, because it's not been filtered through social palatability. You've considered perspectives and possibilities that group-embedded people dismiss automatically because they violate social norms or consensus views. Not all of these perspectives are correct, but some of them are insights that social conformity obscures. You see possibilities others don't because you're not constrained by the same social boundaries. You've also maintained intellectual independence. Your beliefs are yours because you've thought them through, not because they're what your social group believes. You're less susceptible to social contagion of ideas. You evaluate information based on merit rather than social proof. This independence of thought makes you valuable in settings that need fresh perspectives. You don't just echo consensus. You bring genuinely different angles because your thinking has developed in isolation from dominant narratives. You ask questions others don't think to ask. You challenge assumptions others accept without examination. Here's the paradox. Isolation has taught you to value connection more deeply than people who've always had it. You understand what connection actually is and what it requires because you've experienced its absence. You don't take people for granted. When someone does show up in your life, you recognize it as the gift it is. You appreciate small gestures that others barely notice because you know the effort they represent. You value authentic connection over quantity of contacts because you understand the difference. You also have realistic expectations for friendship. You're not looking for perfection or idealized connection. You understand that all relationships have friction and disappointment. You're willing to accept imperfection in others because you've learned that real connection is rare and valuable enough to be worth its complications. When you do connect with someone, you bring depth and appreciation that people who've never been without connection often lack. You show up fully, you invest meaningfully. You don't do surface-level friendship because you understand that authenticity is what makes connection actually satisfying. These skills and strengths are real. They're not compensation for isolation or silver linings meant to make you feel better about a difficult situation. They're actual capabilities you've developed through your experience. But here's what's also true. You would trade many of these gifts for connection if you could. These skills emerged from necessity, not choice. Recognizing them doesn't mean you're glad you were isolated. It doesn't mean the pain was worth it, or that isolation is secretly good for people. What it means is that your experience, difficult as it's been, hasn't been entirely wasteful. You've gained something real and valuable, even while losing or missing other things. You're not just marked by isolation. You're also equipped by it. These gifts don't make isolation okay or desirable, but they do make you someone with unique value. They give you capabilities that could serve you well if circumstances change. They're evidence that even in difficult experiences, human beings develop and adapt and acquire skills. You're not broken by your isolation. You're shaped by it in ways both painful and powerful. And while the painful parts are more obvious, the powerful parts deserve recognition too. Not to minimize the difficulty, but to acknowledge the complete picture of who you've become. The person you are now, forged through solitude, has gifts that the world actually needs. Your depth, your observation, your empathy for the unseen, your authentic way of being. These matter. They're not consolation prizes. They're real strengths that could make a genuine difference, both in your own life as it evolves and potentially in the lives of others who cross your path. Understanding what you've gained doesn't erase what you've lost or missed, but it does give you a more complete sense of who you are. Not just someone struggling with isolation, but someone who's developed rare and valuable capabilities through that struggle. Both things are true, and both deserve to be seen.